I'm Andy Adcroft, Professor Andy Adcroft, and I am the Deputy Dean here at Surrey Business School at the University of Surrey, where I'm also the head of the Department of Strategy and Entrepreneurship. I think it's absolutely vital, particularly for business students, I guess, who are going out into a business world, that they understand how that world works. And one of the key foundation stones is how the economy works, if you like. So students have to understand economics. The difficulty is that the traditional economics that maybe I was taught 30 years ago when I was an undergraduate has actually moved on enormously since then. And I think the biggest challenge now for students is to understand the economic world, and in particular how that economic world is really, really changing. If you look at the way that economics is portrayed in a lot of the media, if you look at the debate that we had in the build-up to the Brexit vote back in June, then I think what you actually had is a phenomenally ill-informed debate. Issues were oversimplified, statistics were used in an incredibly, from my perspective, unacademic way. And people, I don't think, were making judgments on the basis of hard evidence. They were making judgments on the basis of who was shouting the loudest, of who was the most charismatic, of who was scaring people the most. So I don't think there is necessarily a real understanding of the fundamentals of how an economy works, the fundamentals of how the European Union works, Britain's role in the European Union, Britain's role economically in the world. I'm not sure there is that understanding. What you need is informed people who are making decisions, whether those are decisions at senior levels in government through to junior levels in government, or equally importantly, whether it's informed people who understand this making decisions in organisations and businesses. And that, I think, is the real role of business schools, is to educate and provide those informed people who are going to make decisions. We have a 24-hour world in which it's possible to communicate with absolutely anyone. So from a technical perspective, then yes, communication operating at a more integrated level globally is a lot easier to do. If you think about communication more though as a social process, as communication as something that happens between people, whether it's between an individual and a group of people, whether it's between a company and potential customers, whether it's through companies communicating with other companies, companies communicating with investors and shareholders, any number of stakeholders, when you start to think about communication as that social process, then actually it becomes a lot more complicated, and actually it may be a lot more difficult, because now as you communicate globally, you're talking about dealing with people from fundamentally different cultures, people with different values and different beliefs, different traditions and different histories. What keeps me awake at night, and it's more with fascination than anything else, are looking at how some companies really are able to shape the world around them. Let me give you a very, very quick story. A few years ago, I was doing some work in Hong Kong. I flew into Hong Kong, arrived Sunday lunchtime, decided to go for a walk around the city, and came across this queue of people. There was about half a mile long, walked to the end of the, couldn't work out what are all these people doing queuing up, 4 abreast on the sidewalk on a Sunday afternoon. Walked on the other side of the road so I could get to the front of the queue, see what they could. They were queuing up outside the Apple store because there was a new iPhone coming out 2 days later. And that's something that keeps me awake at night. What is it that some companies like Apple have that mean when they bring a new product out, people will queue up for 3 or 4 days, sometimes in the wind and sometimes in the rain, sometimes having fist fights with other people in the queue because they want to be the first in the queue to get their hands on a new smartphone. I'm of a generation that remembers a world before mobile phones, let alone before smartphones. So I'm kind of in awe of the technology a great deal, but I would never imagine that I'm going to queue up. If Samsung bring out a new phone, people won't queue up for 3 days to buy a Samsung phone. So what is it that a company like Apple have? Is it technology? Is it brand? Is it loyalty? Is it just a marketing scam, or is it just marketing? Is it just clever advertising? Is it that that organisation has some kind of unique personality that other companies don't have? Whatever you do as a career, always make sure you enjoy it, that you spend a huge amount of time in work and if you're not enjoying what you do in work, then no amount of money is going to make up for that. So I actually love what I do. I love the fact that every day is different, that when you're teaching something like business, then it is such a live, happening subject that does change, particularly over the last few months, on pretty much a daily basis. It's something that I'm incredibly interested in, and there aren't many jobs you get to do where you get to spend pretty much all of your professional life just looking at things that you are incredibly interested in.